Listen closely, because what you're about to hear is a story of arrogance, disbelief, and the power of a promise. A young boy named Marcus dares to speak of his father's elite status, only to be mocked by those sworn to protect and serve. But sometimes, fate has an unexpected way of showing us who truly holds power and who deserves respect. You'll discover how one police officer's careless laughter turns to dread the moment Marcus's father steps onto the scene. This is no ordinary family, and no ordinary reunion. Stay tuned, because by the end, you'll understand why appearances can be the greatest illusions of all. The morning sun rose over the quaint town of Silverwood Falls, painting the sky with the pastel shades of gold and pink. A slight mist lingered on the wide, empty streets, the kind of morning haze that made the world feel caught between dream and waking. Outside a modest single-story home that had seen better days, a 10-year-old boy named Marcus Jackson sat on his porch steps. He watched the sun's slow climb, occasionally glancing at his mother through the screen door as she busied herself making breakfast. Though small for his age, Marcus carried an air of quiet confidence. His dark eyes shone with a spark of curiosity, and he was always ready with a question. But behind his easy smile, there was a heaviness that only a child whose father was often absent could know. And in Marcus's case, the absence was for reasons far more complex than a simple 9-to-5 job. In the Jackson household, every day carried a mixture of hope, pride, and uncertainty. Marcus's father, Staff Sergeant James Jackson, was a member of the U.S. Army Special Forces, often referred to as the Green Berets. Stationed primarily at Fort Bragg, when in the States, James spent much of his time training or on missions that he could never fully talk about. Marcus found the title Special Forces magical, an echo of epic stories about bravery and valor. Whenever James came home, he brought with him an air of mystery, stories half told, and a resolve that inspired his son beyond measure. But it had been 6 months since anyone in the Jackson household had seen James. 6 long months in which Marcus had written letters, performed well at school, tried not to cause any trouble. In other words, tried to make his father proud, even from thousands of miles away. That morning, as the sun crept higher, Marcus remembered the promise his father made over a scratchy phone call weeks ago. "I'll be home soon, son. Don't give up on me." "Marcus," his mother called from inside, "go on and get that milk for me, please. I need it to finish these pancakes." "Yes, Ma," Marcus responded, bounding up from the porch steps. He patted down the small wad of cash she had given him and set off on his bike. The path to the local store took him through the heart of Silverwood Falls, past tall oak trees and one-story shops still closed for the morning. A few people were opening their businesses, exchanging polite nods and good mornings with the boy as he pedaled by. He arrived at Whitman's Grocery, a corner store that had been in town for generations, sporting peeling paint and a single neon sign that flickered occasionally. Marcus parked his bike outside and walked in the familiar bell chiming overhead. At this early hour, the store was nearly empty. Old Mr. Whitman greeted Marcus with a toothy grin from behind the register. "Good morning, young man. What can I get for you today?" "Just some milk." "Mr. Whitman, Ma's making pancakes. That's so hope you can save a bite for me," Mr. Whitman teased. Marcus laughed and headed to the back of the store. He grabbed a carton of milk from the cooler and started back up the aisle. Suddenly, he heard the bell over the door jingle in a more forceful way. Glancing up, he saw 2 teenagers from a rough neighborhood, eyes darting around like they were up to no good. They didn't look familiar to Marcus, but he sensed their tension, the edgy way they carried themselves. Marcus slid to the side, hoping to avoid them, but they blocked his path. One of them, a taller boy with a shaved head, sneered. "Aren't you a little young to be up this early, buying groceries?" he taunted. "Just getting milk for my mum." Marcus replied calmly. He had learned from his father never to escalate a situation. "I'm not bothering you. Let me just pay and go." The second teen, with braided hair and a scar above his eyebrow, grabbed Marcus's arm. "Got any money on you, kid?" Fear tightened Marcus's stomach, but he tried to keep calm. "I have just enough for milk. Please let me go," he said, voice trembling. Mr. Whitman saw the commotion and called out from the front. "What's going on back there?" At the sound of his voice, the teens shot each other a look. The scarred one reached into Marcus's pocket, grabbed the small wad of bills, then shoved him hard into the display of cereal boxes. Marcus toppled over, stunned, as the two dashed toward the door. Before Marcus could even gather his senses, the teenagers barreled out the door. The store bell clanged loudly behind them, and Mr. Whitman came rushing around the corner. "You okay, Marcus?" he asked, helping the boy up. I'm fine," Marcus stammered, although he felt the sting in his shoulder. The teenage thieves were gone, and so was his money. "We'll call the police." "Mister," Whitman said, placing a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. They might still be close by. "You just hold on. Don't worry about paying for the milk, I've got you covered." Marcus nodded silently, thanking Mr. Whitman as the old man picked up the store phone. Time seemed to move in slow motion. Marcus heard the words, "robbery." 2 teenagers. Yes, a young boy. All fine, but the money's taken echo from the front of the store. Within minutes, a cruiser pulled up, lights flashing but siren off. Out stepped Officer Daniel O'Reilly, a stocky man in his late 40s. His eyes were framed by deep frown lines, and his posture screamed impatience. Officer O'Reilly was known around the neighborhood for his brusque manner and an attitude that often turned small incidents into bigger confrontations. He approached Marcus and Mr. Whitman with a resigned sigh, as though dealing with petty theft was beneath him. "All right, what's the situation?" O'Reilly demanded, not bothering to mask his irritation. Mr. Whitman tried to keep his voice calm. These 2 teenagers came in, took the boy's money, and shoved him into the cereal display before running out. So, O'Reilly scribbled a few notes, eyes barely lifting from his notepad. He turned to Marcus. "And you are Marcus Jackson." "Huh," O'Reilly grunted. "Well, Marcus, you got a description?" Marcus nodded, describing the teens as best he could, though his nerves made the details a bit fuzzy. When he finished, O'Reilly tucked the notepad into his pocket. "Sounds like a couple of local troublemakers. I'll do a quick drive around." He shrugged dismissively. "Might be able to track them down." "Might not," Officer Marcus said softly. "Those guys took the money my mum gave me for groceries. If we can't get it back..." "I don't know." He stopped feeling a wave of embarrassment. They weren't wealthy. Every dollar mattered at home. "Right," O'Reilly said curtly, a note of skepticism creeping into his voice. "Shouldn't you be home, kid? School doesn't start for another hour. You just messing around?" Mr. Whitman stepped in. "The boy's telling the truth. Officer, I saw it with my own eyes." O'Reilly lifted a hand to silence Mr. Whitman. "Look, I'll put out a call, but you," he said, turning back to Marcus, "should be more careful or just leave money matters to adults. Anyway, is your father around to confirm this? Or do you just live with your mum?" The pointed question stung. Marcus felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up, but he answered politely, "My dad is away. He's in the Army, Special Forces officer." O'Reilly raised an eyebrow. "Special Forces, huh?" His eyes danced with a mocking disbelief. Green Beret Delta Force. A real Rambo, is he? Mr. Whitman frowned, sensing the disrespect in the officer's tone. Marcus clenched his fists. Yes, sir. He's a Green Beret. He's stationed at Fort Bragg. O'Reilly barked a short, hollow laugh. Sure he is, kid. Listen next time. Make up something more believable. You live in a modest house, come to this run-down store, and you're telling me your dad's some kind of war hero, right? He shook his head. I'll file the report. Don't hold your breath, though. With that, he turned and trudged back to his cruiser, leaving Marcus feeling both anger and humiliation burning in his chest. Mr. Whitman placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. Don't let it get to you. Marcus, I know your father's a good man. Marcus swallowed hard tears, threatening to break free, but he held them back. He took the milk. Mr. Whitman handed him, thanked the old man, and walked out of the store. As he placed the milk in the basket of his bike, he caught a final glimpse of Officer O'Reilly, who shot him an eye roll before driving away. The ride home was slower. Marcus's thoughts churned, the sting of the officer's mocking words echoing in his mind. Why didn't he believe him? More importantly, why did that disbelief feel so personal, laced with a tone that said, your story is impossible because of who you are, where you come from? He recalled his father's stories about prejudice, about how some people would look at them differently just because of the color of their skin. But remember, Marcus, the measure of a man, is not in their judgment of you, but in how you rise above it. James had once said. Thinking of that gave Marcus a bit of comfort. Still, the frustration lingered. The entire family waited so anxiously for James to return home, to share a meal at the table as a complete family. Over the past few months, money had been tight. Mary Marcus's mother worked 2 jobs, one as a part-time nurse assistant at the local clinic, another cleaning offices in the late afternoons. Marcus tried to help around the house, mowing lawns in the neighborhood for a few extra dollars. Any mention of James's status in special forces outside the family was met with curiosity or skepticism, but never downright ridicule until this morning. For an officer of the law sworn to protect, to laugh at the mere suggestion was both humiliating and enraging. When Marcus reached home, he found his mother busy flipping pancakes. The comforting smell filled every corner of their modest kitchen. She glanced up and immediately noticed the slump in Marcus's shoulders, the scuffed elbow, the troubled expression. "What happened, baby?" she asked, setting the spatula aside to give him her full attention. Marcus told her everything, how he was robbed, how the officer responded, how the man laughed at the mention of his father. The color drained from Mary's face, replaced by anger, and then sorrow. "I'm sorry that happened to you," she said softly, pulling Marcus into a tight hug. "I'll go to the station myself if I have to." Marcus gently pulled away, bracing himself. "It's not just about the money, Ma Officer O'Reilly." He made it seem like Dad couldn't possibly be anything more than someone who left us. His mother's eyes welled with tears, but she blinked them back. "We know the truth. Your father is out there, serving this country. He's a good man, and he loves us. That officer doesn't know a thing about our family." Marcus nodded, a wave of gratitude washing over him. His mother placed a plate of pancakes in front of him, but Marcus found he had little appetite. Instead, he resolved to prove that his father was exactly who he said he was. That afternoon, Marcus tried to go about his normal routine at school. He was in 5th grade, a bright student who excelled in reading and history, but today he couldn't focus on his lessons. Officer O'Reilly's mocking tone replayed in his mind, making him feel uneasy and unmoored. Even at recess, where he usually found relief in a game of basketball with friends. He was distracted. Back home, Mary called the police station to follow up on the incident. She ended up speaking with a desk sergeant who politely took her details, but offered no real assurance that the matter was a priority. Sighing, Mary hung up, worried that justice would not be swift or might never come at all. In the days that followed, Marcus found it hard to forget about the incident. He tried once more to tell a couple of classmates that his father was a Green Beret, but their reactions, while not as overtly mocking as O'Reilly's, ranged from indifferent shrugs to skeptical chuckles. It only deepened his sense of isolation. One evening, as he was doing homework at the kitchen table, Mary walked in with the cordless phone. A hopeful glimmer in her eyes made Marcus's heart skip. "It's your dad," she mouthed silently. Marcus nearly stumbled in his rush, grabbing the phone. "Dad, hey champ," came James's deep, reassuring voice from the other end. "How's my favorite soldier doing?" Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm doing okay," he managed his voice, trembling slightly. "I miss you, Dad. I miss you too, son," James said. "But I'll be home soon. A week, maybe less." A week. Marcus felt his heart soar. "You promise?" "As sure as I'm standing here," James replied. "You know, I can't give details, but it's official. My unit's finished its mission. I'll be debriefed at Fort Bragg, and then I'll be on my way to Silverwood Falls. Get ready for that fishing trip we planned." Marcus grinned. "I am ready." His voice lowered. "Dad." "Something happened?" James paused. "What's wrong, son? Is your mum?" "Okay, she's fine," Marcus assured. Well, I got robbed at the store, and when the cop came, he didn't believe you were in special forces. He laughed about it. It made me so angry." A momentary silence. Marcus imagined his father's jaw clenching. "I see," James finally said. "Don't you worry about that champ. Some people can't see beyond their own assumptions, but we'll handle it. Are you all right?" Marcus nodded, forgetting momentarily that his father couldn't see him. "Yes. Just mad." James exhaled. "We'll talk more when I get home. For now, focus on your schoolwork, and let your mum know I'm thinking about both of you." The call ended with mutual "I love you's" leaving, Marcus feeling slightly relieved. He looked forward to his father's return more than ever, imagining the look on Officer O'Reilly's face when James came back in uniform, tangible proof of everything Marcus said. Days passed slowly. Marcus tried to keep himself busy with schoolwork and chores. A sense of excitement coursed through the Jackson household as Mary and Marcus prepared for James's arrival. Meanwhile, Officer O'Reilly's presence in the small town loomed over them like a storm cloud. Marcus spotted him on multiple occasions at a local diner in his cruiser near the town square, and once driving past their home as if on routine patrol. Their eyes met briefly during one of these drive-bys, and Marcus felt a cold chill run through him. There was something unsettling in O'Reilly's gaze, a mix of annoyance and cynicism, as if he remembered Marcus all too well. True to his word, James arrived one brisk, clear morning. Marcus was already on the porch waiting when a dusty green SUV rolled up. James stepped out wearing civilian clothes, but the unmistakable confidence of a highly trained soldier radiated from him. He was tall, muscular, with a kind smile that belied the seriousness of his work. In an instant, Marcus rushed forward, practically leaping into his father's arms. "Whoa there, champ!" James laughed, scooping Marcus up. "You've grown since I saw you last." Mary stood on the porch, tears of joy in her eyes. James set Marcus down and moved to embrace his wife, the two holding each other in a tender moment, long overdue. That day was spent with Mary, showing James all the little improvements they had made around the house, the fresh coat of paint in the living room, the new curtains in the kitchen, a better storm door. Marcus practically followed his father everywhere he went, refusing to let the man out of his sight for more than a second. The following morning, James decided to walk Marcus to school. Dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt, he still drew curious gazes from neighbors, and passers-by some recognized him, while others saw an imposing figure with a closely cropped haircut that screamed military midway to the school. They spotted a police cruiser, parked haphazardly at the curb near a small coffee shop. Standing beside it, coffee in hand, was Officer O'Reilly. Marcus felt a jolt in his chest, James noticed, and placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. Morning Officer James greeted cordially as they passed. O'Reilly glanced up from his coffee. His eyes flicked from Marcus to James, taking in James's physique and posture. Something about the man's bearing must have clicked in O'Reilly's mind, but he didn't soften. Instead, he gave a curt nod morning. Marcus caught a faint snicker from the officer. He bristled, but James gave a gentle squeeze on his shoulder, silently instructing him not to engage. They continued on their way, but Marcus's mood dampened at the thought that O'Reilly still dismissed them. Later that week, the Jacksons attended a neighborhood watch meeting at the community center. The gatherings were usually small but supportive, aimed at addressing rising petty crime in Silverwood Falls. Mary nudged James to come along, knowing that his presence might inspire or reassure neighbors concerned about safety. The room was abuzz with conversation when they arrived. Mr. Whitman was there, along with other community members, shop owners, retirees, young couples hoping to create a safer environment. Marcus trailed behind, scanning the crowd for any familiar faces. James, Mr. Whitman called, beaming, "So good to see you. I heard you were back in town." "Welcome home, James," shook hands with Mr. Whitman. "Thanks for looking out for my boy the other day," he said in a low voice. Just for Mr. Whitman's ears, he told me everything. Mr. Whitman sighed, nodding. "Not many cops in this town, but that O'Reilly is something else. Man's got a chip on his shoulder." James didn't reply, but his expression hardened at the mention of the officer's name. The meeting got underway with local leaders discussing a spate of burglaries and vandalism incidents. Mary spoke about the robbery at Whitman's grocery, and the group collectively lamented the lack of quick action or leads from the police. Marcus noticed James sitting quietly, hands folded, observing the discussion. Suddenly the room's attention shifted when the door swung open, and Officer O'Reilly walked in wearing his uniform. He placed his hands on his belt, looking around as if daring anyone to challenge him. Several people cut their comments short, tension seizing the air. "Evening, folks," O'Reilly greeted. "I'm here for the community watch meeting, just as a liaison for the department." James's expression remained neutral, but his eyes were locked on O'Reilly. The officer glanced over at James, paused, then continued to the front of the room. It felt like a silent standoff, a tension that everyone sensed, but no one dared to address. When the time came for O'Reilly to speak, he cleared his throat loudly. "We've received your complaints and concerns about recent crimes," he began. "We are doing everything in our power to address them. If you see suspicious activity, dial the station. That's the best we can do." James stood. Everyone looked at him. "Officer O'Reilly, since you're here, maybe you can explain what's been done to find the two thieves who robbed my son at Whitman's." Grocery murmurs fluttered around the room. O'Reilly let out a dismissive sigh. "We followed up. We searched the area. No leads. Not much else to say." James's voice was calm, but firm. "So you're saying that in a small town like Silverwood Falls, with a limited number of suspects, you haven't been able to turn up a single lead." O'Reilly folded his arms. "That's right. Unless you have some top-secret intelligence from that so-called special forces expertise of yours, maybe you could do better." A hush fell over the room at the snide remark. Mary's eyes widened in disbelief. Marcus felt anger coil in his stomach. James kept his composure. "You doubt my service." Officer O'Reilly shrugged. "Don't take it personally. Just that I hear a lot of stories in this line of work." James exhaled slowly. "I see. Well, I can assure you that I am indeed active in special forces under the U.S. Army. I've served multiple tours. I'm stationed at Fort Bragg." "Good for you," O'Reilly said sarcastically. Then he addressed the crowd again, ignoring James's presence. "As I said, we're doing our best." Silence dominated for several moments. The tension was palpable, everyone feeling caught in a showdown they couldn't quite break up. Finally, an organizer announced the meeting's end, and people began filing out, unsettled by the confrontation they had witnessed. Later that evening, as they drove home from the meeting, Mary, James, and Marcus rode in silence for a few minutes. Marcus sat in the back seat, chewing on his lip, still furious over O'Reilly's comment. Mary finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry you had to go through that," she said, glancing at James in the rearview mirror. "Marcus told me how he laughed at him that day, but I never expected him to be so openly disrespectful." James nodded. "It's not the first time I've encountered skepticism. Prejudice comes in many forms, sometimes cloaked in doubt or sarcasm. But I refuse to let it define us." Marcus leaned forward, voice trembling with anger. "He thinks we're nobodies. He thinks you're lying, Dad." James caught his son's eyes in the mirror. "Some people believe only what they want to believe. But that doesn't change the truth." They arrived home. James locked the door carefully behind them, a habit ingrained from years of training. Marcus watched him taking mental notes on his father's calm yet vigilant manner. James was a living testament to the discipline and skill one might expect from someone who had fought for his country in secret corners of the globe. That night, Marcus sat on his bed, staring at the pictures of his father in uniform that hung on the wall. Each photo told a story of courage and commitment. Marcus felt something stirring deep inside him, the determination not just to prove O'Reilly wrong, but to stand up for himself and his family's truth. A few days later, chance intervened. Marcus was walking home from school when he passed by the old railroad tracks near the edge of town. A noise from behind a dilapidated shed caught his attention, muffled voices, punctuated by laughter. He crept closer. Curiosity piqued. Peering around the corner, he caught sight of the same two teenage thieves who had robbed him in the grocery store. They were huddled around a stack of items: a stereo, some gadgets, possibly stolen from other homes or cars. Marcus's heart pounded. He wasn't sure what to do. If he alerted Officer O'Reilly, would the cop even believe him? He needed proof. Crouching behind the shed, he reached for his phone, careful to keep it on silent. His hands trembled as he started recording, zooming in to capture the faces and the stolen goods. The angle wasn't perfect, but it was something he heard them talking about, unloading the stuff that evening. One of them Marcus recognized. The scar above his eyebrow grinned as he bragged about how easy it was to steal from rich folks who don't lock their garages. After a few tense moments, Marcus decided he had enough footage. Quietly, he backed away and hurried down the street. He felt an exhilaration fueled by fear. He had them caught on camera. Surely that would be enough for the police to act on. Maybe this time, O'Reilly would have no choice but to take him seriously. When he got home, He found James in the backyard, patching up a small section of the fence. Marcus ran out, breathless, phone in hand. "Dad, I found those guys who robbed me. I recorded them." James quickly put down his tools. "What, where?" Marcus explained everything in rapid-fire detail, showing his father the video. James scrolled through the footage, a furrow forming in his brow. "This is good evidence," he muttered, "but you shouldn't have put yourself at risk. Next time, call me first." "Okay." Marcus nodded, still trembling. "I just wanted proof." James placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. "Let's get this to the station." They arrived at the Silverwood Falls Police Department, an old brick building that looked more like a library than a station. Inside, a middle-aged woman sat behind the receptionist's desk, taking phone calls and handing out forms. James approached her calmly, phone in hand. "We have evidence of a crime." James explained, tapping the phone. The woman, whose nameplate read Ms. Farnsworth, looked skeptical, but motioned for them to wait. Within minutes, an officer emerged from a side door. To Marcus's dismay, it was none other than Officer O'Reilly, still wearing the same dismissive expression. "Yes," he asked, looking from James to Marcus. James held the phone out. "My son recorded the individuals who robbed him at Whitman's grocery. They appear to be in possession of stolen items." O'Reilly grimaced, taking the phone. He watched the footage, occasionally squinting at the screen. Marcus studied the officer's face, half expecting him to blow it off. But something flickered in O'Reilly's eyes, a grudging realization that this was legitimate proof. "Huh," O'Reilly finally said, handing the phone back. "Where do you see them?" Marcus answered, voice quavering slightly. "Near the old railroad tracks by the green shed." O'Reilly glanced at James. "All right, I'll send a cruiser out there to investigate. Let me guess you'll do it quickly. Then say, no leads." "Again," James said, a hint of scorn coloring his tone. O'Reilly's nostrils flared. "Look, I'm just doing my job. Don't tell me how to do police work. Army man." James leaned in his voice, dropping to a measured calm. "For your information, I've conducted more than a few recon missions in hostile territory. I know how to handle suspects. If you can't do it, maybe you should let someone else take the lead." Their gazes locked, the air sizzling with tension. Ms. Farnsworth cleared her throat nervously. "Officer, perhaps you could have Detective Wilcox assist O'Reilly," broke the glare, looking toward Ms. Farnsworth. "Fine." He returned his stare to James. "We'll go check it out." Unable to stand the tension any longer, Marcus tugged on his father's sleeve. They turned to leave. As they walked out, they caught O'Reilly muttering under his breath. "Thinks he's some kind of hero." Late that night, James couldn't sleep. Marcus had gone to bed, and Mary was flipping through TV channels aimlessly, the glow of the screen illuminating the living room. James paced, mind churning with the details of the day. He wasn't confident that O'Reilly would properly act on the evidence. Something about the officer's attitude suggested he might even sabotage the case out of spite. Finally, James made a decision. He grabbed his jacket, phone, and car keys. "Mary, I need to check on something," he said quietly. She looked at him, concern etching her face. "Be careful," she whispered. James headed toward the old railroad tracks. Parking discreetly, he moved through the shadows with the stealth of someone trained for clandestine operations. He made his way to the green shed where Marcus had spotted the thieves. Sure enough, he heard hushed voices peering around a corner. James saw them, the same two teens, rummaging through stolen items laid out on the ground, apparently waiting for a buyer. He pressed his body against the shed heart, pounding, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline that comes from a high-stakes situation. His training kicked in. He was about to dial the police station's main line for backup when he heard an unexpected sound approaching footsteps. A figure emerged from the darkness, wearing the distinct uniform of the Silverwood Falls Police Department. For a moment, James thought it might be Detective Wilcox, or another good cop about to make a bust. Then he saw the man's face as he stepped into the faint light of a distant street lamp. Officer O'Reilly James froze, watching with narrowed eyes. O'Reilly approached the teens, who looked momentarily startled, before relaxing. The scarred teen smirked. "You're late?" O'Reilly shrugged, glancing at the loot. "This everything?" The taller teen nodded, rummaging through a bag and pulling out some jewelry. "We want a bigger cut next time." James felt his blood run cold. O'Reilly was conspiring with the criminals he was supposed to catch. The entire reason the robberies and thefts had gone unsolved suddenly became crystal clear. O'Reilly was not only incompetent, but also corrupt. He had to move to do something. James reached for his phone to record the exchange. But in that moment, O'Reilly spun around, flashlight beam sweeping over the area. The light landed on James. "Who's there?" O'Reilly shouted, hand going to his holster. James quickly dropped to a crouch behind some debris. The teens exchanged alarmed glances. Fearful of stepping into the open with an armed cop, James realized he needed backup. Carefully, he tapped his phone to speed dial the station. His voice was a hushed whisper. "Detective Wilcox, please," he whispered urgently to the dispatcher, who answered. "Officer O'Reilly is involved in criminal activity at the old railroad tracks near the green shed." "Send help now." The dispatcher, clearly startled, asked for more details. James provided them swiftly and ended the call. He only had one chance to keep O'Reilly from fleeing or harming the teens. Despite their crimes, they were still minors, and O'Reilly was an adult with a gun. James stepped out from behind the debris hands. Raised O'Reilly, he called, "Put your weapon down. Detective Wilcox is on his way." The officer's flashlight beam found James illuminating his face. Fury etched O'Reilly's features. "You meddling?" He drew his sidearm, pointing it at James. The teens scattered, diving behind old crates. James kept his hands up, his heart pounding, but his training kicking into overdrive. "Don't do this," he warned. "You're going to lose everything." In response, O'Reilly fired a warning shot into the air. "Stay back." James dove for cover behind a rusted barrel. A tense standoff ensued. O'Reilly advanced cautiously, gun held steady. The teens cowered, uncertain whose side to take. One of them tried to run, but O'Reilly swung the gun around. "Don't move!" James seized that moment, rolling out and sweeping O'Reilly's legs from under him. With a precise low kick, an old hand-to-hand combat move from his Special Forces training, O'Reilly hit the ground hard, his gun skidding away. James quickly pinned him, pressing his knee into the officer's back. A swirl of police lights broke over the scene, accompanied by the screech of tires. Several squad cars arrived, with Detective Wilcox leading the charge. Backup officers scrambled out, guns drawn, shining flashlights. Freeze One officer shouted momentarily, unsure who was friend or foe. James slowly raised his hands, stepping back from O'Reilly. "James Jackson, U.S. Army Special Forces." He said clearly, "This man, Officer O'Reilly, was about to shoot me. He's been working with these thieves." Detective Wilcox stepped forward, his steely gaze shifting between James O'Reilly and the terrified teens. "Arrest Officer O'Reilly." Wilcox ordered the other officers, who quickly secured O'Reilly and picked up his discarded weapon. The teens, shaking, surrendered themselves, hands behind their heads. Chaos reigned for a few moments, with numerous questions asked and statements taken. Through it all, James maintained his composure, providing his account of events in precise detail. He presented his phone call, history, the dispatcher's records, confirming he had phoned the station. The entire scenario painted a damning picture of O'Reilly's corruption. News travelled fast in Silverwood Falls. By dawn, people were buzzing about Officer O'Reilly's arrest and James Jackson's bravery. The story spread that James, a trained Green Beret, had uncovered the truth behind a string of local robberies in one dramatic standoff. For Marcus, the morning felt surreal. He woke to Mary's tearful but proud account of what happened at the railroad tracks. He rushed to his father, who had just returned home after giving statements at the station. "You did it, Dad?" Marcus exclaimed, hugging him fiercely. "You proved them all wrong." James smiled, ruffling Marcus's hair. "I did what had to be done," he replied simply. Within hours, neighbors, friends, and townsfolk were calling the Jackson home to offer congratulations and apologies for ever doubting them. Mr. Whitman even drove over in his old pickup to personally thank James, claiming that the resolution restored his faith in the community. Detective Wilcox arrived later that day with official documents in hand. He apologized for O'Reilly's actions, assuring the Jacksons that a thorough internal investigation would follow. "Not all of us are like him," Wilcox said earnestly. James nodded, understanding that one bad cop didn't negate the entire force's integrity. Meanwhile, the teenagers who had committed the robberies were taken into custody. During interrogation, they admitted that O'Reilly had paid them to steal items he could later sell or fence splitting profits. He used his position to divert suspicion from them, providing false leads and destroying evidence. The case, though shocking, was rock solid now. Officer O'Reilly faced immediate termination from the police department. Worse yet, charges of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and assault were leveled against him. The disgrace was complete. Once the case went public, the community he had dismissed and disrespected turned against him. Even those who had once tolerated him for his rank and job now saw the truth. For James, the consequences of O'Reilly's downfall were bittersweet. He took no pleasure in another man's ruin, but he believed in justice. The incident triggered a wave of reforms in the Silverwood Falls Police Department, led by Detective Wilcox. The department was forced to tighten its oversight, implement community-driven policing strategies, and rebuild trust with the citizens. Marcus watched it all unfold with a mixture of relief and awe. The words O'Reilly had thrown at him that day, mocking him for claiming his father was in special forces, echoed in his mind. But now they carried no weight. The entire town knew the truth. James Jackson was a hero who had put his own life on the line to expose corruption. In the weeks following, the Jackson family found themselves at the center of community gratitude. A local newspaper published a front-page story titled "Green Beret Saves Town: From Corruption in Dramatic Railroad Showdown." Suddenly, James was receiving invitations to speak at community events. Schools, even veterans organizations wanting to celebrate his service. At a small gathering organized by the Neighborhood Watch Committee, the townspeople recognized James with a plaque that read, "In honor of bravery and unwavering commitment to justice." Marcus beamed with pride as he watched his father graciously accept the award. Mary, too, found relief in knowing that the robbery incident had been resolved and that the truth about her husband's service was no longer in question. She still worked her 2 jobs, but now the community took more notice of her family's struggles. Offers of help, such as tutoring for Marcus or a free meal from a local diner, started to trickle in. While they were not a family to rely on charity, it felt good to be acknowledged. With O'Reilly's arrest, a certain weight lifted from the town. Crime rates dropped, whether because the local thieves were caught or because the crooked cop who had encouraged them was now behind bars. Silverwood Falls began to feel like the safe haven it was always meant to be. James settled back into daily life, enjoying time with Mary and Marcus. They went on that fishing trip, reeling in sunfish and catfish from the quiet lake on the outskirts of town. Marcus marveled at how easily his father cleaned and filleted the fish, applying the same methodical precision he used in the army. Back at home, as the smell of fried fish wafted from the kitchen, James told Marcus stories, some real, some carefully edited for a child's ears, about his missions overseas, the camaraderie among soldiers, and the responsibility that came with being part of special forces. Marcus listened intently, eyes shining. One weekend, James decided to treat Marcus to a tour of Fort Bragg, where he was still officially stationed. Mary had to work, so it was a father-son trip. As they drove onto the massive base, Marcus couldn't contain his excitement. He saw rows of helicopters training grounds and soldiers running drills with an intensity that took his breath away. James introduced his son to some of his fellow Green Berets. Marcus found himself shaking hands with men who had served in covert operations around the world, each wearing the iconic Green Beret. They shared a respect for James that went beyond words, patting Marcus's shoulder, telling him how proud they were of his dad. It was a moment that validated everything Marcus had believed since he was a little boy, that his father was truly someone extraordinary. One afternoon, weeks after O'Reilly's arrest, the family was driving back from a trip to the next town over. On a lonely stretch of road, they passed a county prison transport van. Marcus peered through the window and caught sight of a hunched figure in handcuffs, Officer O'Reilly looking pale and defeated. Marcus felt a moment of pity mixed with a strange sense of closure. Karma had indeed come for O'Reilly, and in a sense more punishing than Marcus could have ever imagined. No laughter or mocking remarks remained on O'Reilly's face, just the haunted look of a man who had lost everything. Marcus turned away from the window, focusing instead on the steady presence of his father at the wheel. Letting go of anger, he decided, was the better path. One evening, not long after father and son were walking through their neighborhood at dusk. The air was crisp, the sky awash with a fading orange glow. Marcus kicked at a small rock, mulling over recent events. "Dad," he began, voice reflective, "I used to think that proving you were in special forces was the most important thing. But now, I think it's about more than that. It's about doing what's right, no matter what people believe or say," James smiled, draping an arm over Marcus's shoulder. "You've learned something. It takes many people years to figure out. We can't control what others believe, but we can stand by the truth. In the end, the truth prevails." They walked on silhouettes in the twilight, father and son sharing a bond forged by respect and tested by adversity. Silverwood Falls slowly healed from the betrayal inflicted by Officer O'Reilly's corruption. The police department, now under intense scrutiny, improved training and established a community review board. Detective Wilcox led the charge, ensuring that every complaint or incident was addressed fairly and thoroughly. Crimes were pursued diligently, and the cooperation between townspeople and law enforcement blossomed. For Marcus, life regained a pleasant routine. He enjoyed hearing "Hey Heroes, Kid" from friends and neighbors, but more importantly, he took pride in the knowledge that his father's honor was intact, undisputed. He no longer felt the need to prove anything. When classmates asked about his dad, Marcus simply smiled, confident in the knowledge that the truth was clear. In the months following, James's presence in Silverwood Falls remained strong. Though he still spent time at Fort Bragg, he managed to secure a longer leave, allowing him to be more present. Community leaders even offered him a part-time security consulting role, an opportunity to use his expertise to protect and serve on a local level. James graciously accepted, determined to continue making the town safer. Marcus thrived under his father's guidance. His grades remained high, and he joined the school's junior cadet program, eager to develop discipline and leadership skills. Each day he'd come home with stories of drills and exercises, an excited glow on his face that reminded James of his own early days in ROTC. Time passed quickly, and James's extended leave eventually came to an end. He was due for another overseas assignment. The news weighed heavily on the Jackson household, but they faced it with unwavering resolve. Marcus dreaded the thought of his father leaving again, but he knew it was part of James's calling. On the last weekend before James's departure, the family held a small barbecue in their backyard. Friends and neighbors dropped by, bringing dishes and well-wishes. Mr. Whitman arrived with a homemade apple pie. Detective Wilcox came too, wearing a more relaxed expression than usual. Halfway through the event, a hush spread among the guests. A marked police cruiser pulled up at the curb. People exchanged concerned looks, memories of O'Reilly's wrongdoing still fresh, but out stepped a younger officer with a warm smile. She approached James with a manila envelope in her hands. Staff Sergeant Jackson. "Sir," she asked politely. James nodded, curiosity piqued. "I'm Officer Jill Hernandez, Silverwood Falls, PD." She introduced herself. "I have something for you on behalf of the department." She handed over the envelope. James opened it, revealing a formal letter of commendation for his role in exposing police corruption and preventing further crimes in the town. The letter was signed by the Chief of Police and endorsed by local council members. James read it quietly, emotion stirring behind his eyes. Then he showed it to Mary and Marcus. Applause broke out among the backyard guests. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, but this time they were tears of pride. Officer Hernandez saluted James, a gesture of respect and gratitude. James, though technically not in uniform, returned the salute with equal sincerity. In that moment, it felt as though a full circle had been completed. The same police force that had once harbored O'Reilly's mockery and skepticism was now honoring James's courage. That night, as the sun set on the last day before James's new assignment, the Jackson family gathered in their living room. James had packed his duffel bag with the precision of a seasoned soldier. The mood was bittersweet. Marcus sat on the couch, eyes downcast. "I'm gonna miss you. Dad," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. James knelt in front of his son, placing a hand on his knee. "I'll miss you too. Champ, but I carry you and your mum in my heart wherever I go. And remember, I promised you I'd come back safe." Tears slipped down Marcus's cheeks. Mary joined them, pulling both her husband and son into a tight family hug. The living room was silent, except for the sound of their steady breathing, each person bracing for the distance that would soon separate them. Again, James pulled away, gently brushing the tears from Marcus's face. "You're stronger than you know. Remember that?" Marcus nodded, wiping his eyes. "I will. And I'll make you proud here." "Dad." "I know you will," James said, smiling. "You already have." As days turned into weeks, James's departure became part of their new normal. But now the spectre of doubt that once hung over the Jackson household had vanished, replaced by renewed faith in each other, and in the community, Marcus went back to his daily routines, school chores, hanging out with friends, and occasionally found himself quietly humming with a sense of satisfaction. The town knew the truth about his father. More importantly, he had learned the deeper lesson: real respect doesn't come from titles or boasting. It comes from actions. Officer O'Reilly's trial made headlines briefly before fading into the background of larger state and national news. He was found guilty on multiple charges, including conspiracy and misconduct. The judge handed down a sentence that assured he would spend years behind bars. The day Marcus heard the verdict, he felt only a quiet sense of resolution. He had no sympathy left for the man who had stolen his dignity, mocked his father's honor, and betrayed the community. Justice had been served. Silverwood Falls continued to grow a little wiser and a lot more unified. The Community's Watch program expanded ironically, fulfilling one of O'Reilly's stated but never realized goals of citizen involvement. Detective Wilcox, now a respected figure, often used James's standoff at the railroad tracks as an example in training sessions for new recruits, emphasizing that trust and integrity form the backbone of true law enforcement. And so life marched on Marcus Mary, and James lived with the knowledge that while challenges would always arise, they had within them the strength to stand firm. Their story, born from humiliation and disbelief, had transformed into one of empowerment, justice, and unwavering love. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey, where doubt collided with dedication and truth stood taller than any prejudice. From Marcus's heartbreak at being mocked to the dramatic takedown of a corrupt officer, we witnessed how real courage and family bonds can uproot even the most insidious problems. Now the town of Silverwood Falls stands stronger, cleansed of corruption, and united in purpose. If this story stirred your heart, taught you a lesson, or simply entertained you, please hit that like button. Share it with friends and family who need a reminder of the power of truth, and subscribe to this channel for more stories that honor integrity, love, and resilience. By supporting this channel, you're helping us continue to shine a light on tales that inspire and uplift. Thank you, and see you next time.